Today, we are talking about 3 different things. So the first one is going to be different ways to get pregnant and how that affects your pregnancy. Stay tuned. This is going to be a good one. Also, managing your provider when you don't really like them and it's going to be real difficult to switch. And then finally, is AI okay to ask pregnancy questions too? So let's untangle it. Today's guest is a child safety advocate and CPST on TikTok. She loves to provide informed research on product safety for parents who are getting their registry together. I want to introduce today's guest, Dani Morin. Hey, Dani, welcome back to the Pulling Curls podcast.
I'm so excited to be back. I feel like this time you and I have gotten to know each other so well that it's just really friends talking to friends. So things may get intimate here because we are talking about conception in every different way that you could think.
Well, not every. I mean, you didn't show she never did IVF, like full on IVF, right?
I never did IVF. People get that so confused, which we'll get into.
Yeah. Okay. So Dani has been pregnant 3 times and all 3 very different ways. So most often I want people to understand that there are different options for people to get pregnant. And your second option, I think, is a viable one that a lot of people don't even consider because they just think it's too out there, right? Like I told your story to my mom and she was like aghast at it. And I was like, why? What is the difference between her going into the office and having it done and doing it at home? But anyway, just like a spoiler for everybody. Okay, pregnancy number 1, got pregnant.
Pregnancy number 1, 24 years old. I was working at a wine company. I was, living the lavish lifestyle of a 24-year-old, kind of like an Alex Earl, right? I was on yachts. I was living in Newport Beach, very much up into the party scene. And it was one of those situations where I fell pregnant having some fun. So the great thing about that pregnancy, though, is I never thought I wanted to be a mom. And I found out I was pregnant. I was like well into my 2nd trimester, by the way. And I knew because, I was a big partier, but I could not put down even a glass of wine. I was like vomiting. I'm like, what is going on? So I had gone like a month or so without like even having like a sip of alcohol. Like it was making me so sick. I should have known right then. But I had a doctor. And so this is for all the girls listening. I had a doctor tell me like, well, you have PCOS and a tilted is it a tilted uterus or a tilted
Sometimes
something?
They call it
so,
tilted cervix.
A tilted cervix. It was a tilted something. And so I was probably going to have a tough time ever conceiving. And I probably wouldn't. And I'm like, oh, fine by me because, I'm going to live in a high rise someday and just be like single and successful. Like that's just the vibe that I was like putting out 24-year-old me. And it's so crazy because the second I found out I was pregnant with that baby, I go in and I knew the gender that day. Like I go in and I know the gender and everything that day. And I had this like crazy emotion come over me. I cannot even explain it. I have not had this with my other pregnancies, but this crazy emotional connection to this child. And again, we've gone into loss and stuff. So I think my other pregnancies, I haven't had this immediate connection because of my fear of loss. But I had this emotional, crazy connection of just wanting to do everything to make sure that this baby was safe and taken care of and in the womb and just like the best baby products and all this stuff. And like, I became like mom 5,000 overnight. Like it was this crazy thing. And I realized at that point, I was like, my purpose on this earth is to be a mom. And 10 days prior, it was completely opposite. Like, oh, I'm totally fine never having kids. So sometimes things happen that give you a different perspective on life. And getting pregnant with my son, Deacon, was just that. Like, what I thought my purpose was completely different than when I found out I was pregnant. And I'm like, this is my sole purpose. And I will do everything to be like the best mom I can. Now, we're not going to dive too much into the grief, but when he was 18 months old, he was strangled by a Baltic amber teething necklace at a negligent daycare. That's a whole thing. If you guys go on my social media, you could dive more into that. So I lost him around almost 19 months old, and that ruined me, completely shattered me, ruined me. again, I had just found my purpose, and that was like in motherhood and being this boy's mom. And I was a single mom, and I thought I was doing so well with that. And this tragic thing happened, and it ruined me to the point where I, was making really bad choices. I did not know how to grieve. I was medicating with alcohol and other things. And I just was like hoping not to wake up. Like, that was just not something I wanted to do anymore, was like live on this earth without being a mother and being that boy's mom. I did end up getting help for that. A couple years into my grief, I just was like, if I'm going to keep waking up, I don't want to keep waking up like this. Like, there's has to be more to life than this grief and like this pain. And I got my life back together, and I just kind of saw things skyrocket, some of which was sharing my story and opening up about my truth and my story on social media. Believe it or not, I think it was a huge part. I mean, that in the rehab, but I think it was a huge part to kind of just living my truth. And these are the things that happened, and this is how I got pregnant. This is how he passed away. This is the guilt that I'm dealing with. These are the struggles that I have. And now I'm sober going through all of this again. But like, just in a few years, I literally saw my life skyrocket, and it has not stopped. So I guess now's the point. We could get into the very controversial subject of my next birth. And you can stop and ask all the questions, because I want people to understand that when I am telling you about how I got pregnant with my second child, who's now almost 5, by the way.
Quick, I want to stop you though. Really quick, I want to stop you though.
Yeah.
Because I was thinking it was interesting at Mom Too, how you were talking about how you like turned into Mama Bear and you wanted to do like everything natural with your first one, right? It turned on some like natural cloth diapering, all feet on the ground, like in the grass.
Okay, I'm so glad that you brought that up, because there was, and I had gotten vulnerable with you on this topic at that table, actually. And that's just the gems of Mom 2.0. You just start, word vomiting your vulnerability. But so when I found out I was pregnant, I thought like all these people are going to look down on me for how I became pregnant, right? And so I'm going to prove everyone wrong, and I'm going to be the top mama dog out there. Like, I'm going to have the best rated car seat at the time. I'm going to, and then in 2015, it was very much the all natural mama, right? So you breastfeed until your kid goes to kindergarten. Like, you do not put a regular diaper on your kid. You cloth diaper. You do not use regular wipes. You make your own wipes, which is like grapeseed oil, and at the time lavender, which we know is like, you never put lavender on like a boy's genitals. Like, it was just the crazy thing. The Baltic teething necklaces, which were part of how he died, those were like your badge of honor. Like, if you were taking your kid out to Target and he had on a Baltic teething necklace, like, those mamas knew you were all natural mama. And it was just this, this whole thing of everything's natural. And I really fell into that. And I held a lot of guilt about the Baltic teething necklace for the longest. I still do, to be honest. But I have come to terms with the fact that I was doing the best that I could with the information put in front of me and the information that I was consuming. So at the time, and you are an OG blogger, so you know this, but like at the time in 2014, 15, so I was like pregnant 2014, 15, 16, the blogger life was like a real big thing. We didn't have really Instagram, or we had Facebook, but we didn't really have all these things going on that we do now. We didn't have pediatricians making videos. We didn't have the experts out there like yourself, like making videos and stuff like that. I didn't even know what the AAP was. Like, don't even ask me what those acronyms stand for. And so we had these mama bloggers. And so when we would Google, all natural remedies or safety or whatever, this is what was popping up on our Googles, right? Was these mom blogs, which are not reputable at all. I could Google right now, like, can I do meth while pregnant? And I'll find something that supports that. Like, it's out there. Like, people anywhere could write anything that they want online. And so I fell into these like all natural trends, and I was not that I wasn't open to the evidence based, it just was not what was being populated in front of me at the time. Now I think people definitely know that they can find the evidence, or they can find the topics that are going to support their narrative or how they want to parent, and they're going to choose the latter. So it's a little bit different now, and we're seeing kind of a similar thing happening in 2025 with the all natural, the anti-vax, anti-evidence, anti-pediatrician, anti-doctor. We're seeing that again now in 2025, but it was pretty heavy in like 2015. And I definitely fell into that trap. And it took me a while to climb out of this crunchy, holistic, homeopathic life. It took me, even I was still lingering a little bit when I had my second child. I'm like, come on, you know better. Like, you know better. Like, that sounds good, but that is not safe. So, yeah, so I was sucked into that. But I have come to, I guess, realization, and I guess a little bit of peace, I'll say. I've come to a little bit of peace with the fact that there wasn't anything out there saying that the Baltic amber teeth necklaces were bad. Now it's all you're going to find. But at the time, thousands of kids were wearing them. This was the information put in front of me that instead of giving your kid Tylenol, this is going to help. We know it's a hoax now, and it's a whole thing. But I do feel that even at that time,
there was one at mom too.
I know. And I do feel like, and we could get into that too, but I do feel like at this point, I was the best mom that I could be for that baby with the information that I had. And so I've actually changed my tone online to how I talk to parents when I see moms using things. And then I'm like, hey, just so you know, like, those aren't recommended. Here's some evidence to prove it. And then they're on the defense. And I'm like, you know what? They're on the defense because they're doing the best with the information that they got. And that's an ad for a teething necklace, you know?
Yeah.
Or whatever it might be. That's a mommy blog about, bed sharing or whatever. So it's whatever they find. It's just that like so my tone has changed a little bit, but yeah, with the teething necklace at Mom 2.0, I had a ton of people coming up to me saying, you should go tell that mom your story because her baby's wearing a teething necklace. And I'm like, you should go tell that mom my story and just point to me and say that mom doesn't have a son anymore because of that necklace and you're wearing it. I was like, there's a time and place, and I'll never go up to a mom like at a Starbucks in front of a bunch of people and be like in line in front of people and being like, oh, that necklace is what killed my kid. I would never do that. I used to. Now I'll wait and see like, hey, can I get that mom alone privately and say something? Mm-hmm. Mom 2.0, and there's thousands of moms there and feeling judged. Sorry, I have a little acid reflux from the pregnancy. So bad.
So many people have unplanned pregnancies, and I think they all feel like no one else has an unplanned pregnancy. But as a nurse, when you're going through prenatals, because your doctor asked you at your first appointment, was this planned, unexpected, unwanted? So many people say unplanned. And so I never want people to think just because they weren't planning on this, that somehow they're a worse mom. And just in case people are listening who are like, yeah, that's me. Like, I'm pregnant and wasn't expecting it. You're still an amazing mom. That doesn't mean anything about you going forward. Hopefully, I wish somebody had told Dani of 2015 that.
And you know what's so funny is how I look back at it is that people were very upset with how I got pregnant, right? But when that baby was here, like, that all seemed to go away. And I remember at his funeral, like, seeing people show up there, and like, I was able to pull comments that they left on my pregnancy announcement. And I'm like, oh, it's funny that like you cared about him now that he's alive and now dead. But like, when I was pregnant, I was this, and these names that you left in the comments. But like, my whole thing is that once the babies are here, it does not matter how they came to be. Like, they are so loved on, and it does not matter. And people have unplanned pregnancies while married. Like, it's, you know what I mean? Like, they happen all the time. These are things that happen. And for me, it was the best thing that happened. I actually get asked a lot, and I've never done a video on this, but I get asked quite a bit, like in one-on-one conversations, like, if you knew that you were going to have a child that was going to die at 18 months, like, would you have, because I got pregnant in this weird way, like, would you have done it again? And my answer is always 100,000 times over. Like, the lessons learned, the value of becoming a mom, learning my purpose, of having this love that I've never, ever, ever known or experienced before, is a love like that of a child. To be able to do that again, I would 100% sign up for it, even though it would come with the grief and the alcohol and the rehab and the recovery and all of these other things. I would still choose to do that again. So, and that's just like my story, but it's something that gets asked. I sat on it for the first time and I'm like, and it was too close to the death, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
But now I could sit back almost 10 years later and I'm like, I would do it 100 million times over.
That's amazing. This episode of the Pulling Curls podcast is sponsored by the online prenatal class for couples. If you are looking to get prepared for your upcoming birth, please join me. It truly is the easy way to get prepared. Then you decided you wanted another one.
Yeah. So I was a couple years into my sobriety. Life was going really good. I had, at my corporate job, gotten Rep of the Year a couple years in a row. I was starting to do social media by accident. I was just sharing my stories to honestly just help. I have a big thing, like sometimes when you share your truth, you're helping others. And in turn, I felt like I was doing good in my son's name and doing the safety advocacy and stuff like that. Like, I felt like I was making him proud and I was making myself proud, and it felt really good. And I just really wanted to be a mom. Now, I had started dating. I was going on numerous dates every single week. It was very weird. I just was, this is just not what I want. And I was like finding myself like on these dates being like, could I settle for this? Like, and I'm like, why would you want to just settle to have like, my goal was to be a mom again. And I just don't know if I was wanting to date and wanting a boyfriend or a husband. And I wasn't finding like that match. And so I had gone to HRC Fertility. They had a fertility night where they were going over IVF options and they had this fertility night. So I was like, I'm going to walk up there. The hospital is like walking distance to my house. I was like, I'm going to walk up there and sit in on this and hear about IVF. I really just wanted to know what it would cost to do IVF. So I go in there and it was definitely like a salesy thing. Like, this is like a moneymaker, like I realized. But they went into sperm donors. A lot of people that were there actually were married couples where the guy was sterile. And I never heard of something like that before. So a lot of people there were trying to figure out. So they had like the sperm donation. I think like California Cryo might have been there. Like some of the sperm donation, there was like, it was a salesy thing, like use our services and stuff. So I never even knew that that was even a thing. So I did do a consultation with them. I remember the doctor in our meeting like had like fallen asleep. Anyways, it was like a weird situation. I was like asking what the steps were going to be. And I had ordered some sperm from a sperm bank and I was planning on doing IUI. So there's IVF, and this is, okay, I'm going to break this down because this is, everyone's like, did you choose the gender? I'm like, oh my God, they have no idea what I did. Okay, so IVF is where they take the sperm, they put it into the egg, and they insert that into the uterus. And you could tell me if I'm using these terms wrong, okay?
All these things.
IUI, okay, so IUI is where they kind of take like a catheter and they place the sperm directly as close to the egg as possible. So some men have issues with mobility of sperm to where they got the sperm count, the sperm's good and clean and all this stuff, but for some reason it's not swimming as it should to the egg. So IUI sometimes like gives the sperm a better chance to penetrate the egg, so to speak.
Yes.
So they use kind of like a catheter. So that was going to be the option I did because I'm like, I've gotten pregnant before. I don't think I need IVF. Well, we were doing this whole thing. And because I had, tilted cervix or tilted uterus and PCOS, because I'd been diagnosed with that before, I was using that and to get IUI covered by insurance. Well, you cannot get IUI covered by insurance until you're 35 years old, which I did not know. So what I thought was going to cost me like $2,500 was going to cost me close to $12,000. And I was like, that's going to be a negative. I'm crying in the office and I'm like, my whole plan, I was supposed to start the medications, which are on their own, like $2,000. So this nurse kind of like pulls me aside and she's like, you should go on Facebook and join the lesbian communities and they'll tell you the ways to have a baby on your own at home. And I'm like, psychotic, no. So I had gotten in the car with my mom and I was like, yeah, I had this idea of, getting pregnant on my own, but it's not going to work out. And my mom had kind of said something like in a joking fashion where she was like, what if though you like found somebody and like, friendly or something and you could like get pregnant that way. So I was like,
such a mom thing to say.
And she's like, I mean, don't do that. But like, she's like, I know it's just, this is like what you want this so bad. And I went home and like, I slept on it and I'm like, no, but for real, like, how are the lesbians? Like, how are they having babies? Are they all going through IVF, IUI? So I find a lesbian group and they're like, join this group, which is home insemination is what it's called. And shout out to the lesbian community for opening your arms wide open and teaching me the ways of how this works. There's a science they taught me the way. So I was on the home insemination group. I ended up finding Single Mom by Choice group. Now I've not been on Facebook since probably 5 years, but I found Single Mom by Choice group. I found home insemination group. And the home insemination is where now some people find like live partners that will produce sperm into a cup and then they inseminate it more like in a live situation. I had ordered sperm already. So I just had that then shipped to my house instead of to the IUI place or to the fertility clinic. And I did it myself. So there was a whole science behind it. You let it thaw for 20 minutes and then it's basically like a syringe, so smaller than a tampon, and you just put it up there and you wait 30 minutes. And I got pregnant on the first vial, first try. But these women walked me through it, exactly what to do. And then I thought it would be a good idea to, after I was like 9 months pregnant, to make a video of how I did it. And the internet had some things to say. And it's so funny because I'd been researching how I was going to do this for about 7 months before I pulled the trigger. So all I thought in my mind, so I had gone to the fertility clinic where there was all these like couples there where the husbands were sterile. So everything was about sperm donation stuff. So in my mind, I had gotten so wrapped up in this that in my mind, the only way people were conceiving these days was sperm donation. Like in my mind, like, so when people are like, oh my God, this is shocking. I'm like, is it? Like, it's pretty normal because what I had been going through and like what I was like presented with in the groups that I was in, like, this was the most normal thing. So I had to take a step back and be like, people are shocked about this, and I made it very clear in this video. The first thing I said was, I'm reviewing my finances because mind you, I got knocked up with my first child young in my 20s. And although at the time I thought I was making a lot of money, you do not equate for your $1,500 of daycare every month and $500 of groceries, clothes, and diapers or whatever you need. And you're not equating for all this other money of this other human that you have to raise. When I had my son Deacon, I did have to move home. There was no way I was going to be able to pay rent and then also put him in daycare and work and pay for all these things. Like, so the first thing I ever did in that video is I was like, you have to look at your finances first and foremost. Like, the last thing you want is, now I figured it out with my son Deacon. I moved in with my mom and it was great. And I love that she was a huge part of his life and my sister was living there at the time. And I love that it worked out that way. But I want people to know a lot of people just account for how much it costs to get pregnant. They're not thinking of childcare, groceries, clothing, school. They're not thinking of all this other stuff. So I'm like, you need to think about this and make sure if you're going to purposely do this, that you do it with intent and that you're set up to the best of your ability, what, like, financially, emotionally. I also talked about, I had a lot of help. Like, I had my mom, like, I knew I was going to have a village of support already. So I just gave people, I was like, before I dive into how I did this, like, these are things that you really need to think about. But everyone's biggest thing was like, my son was going to end up in jail because statistics without a father, all this stuff. And I'm like, well, those are statistics. So some people don't end up in jail. You know what I mean? Like, but there was a lot of that. Now, my son, I did make sure had a father figure from the day he was born, which was my brother, who is a huge part of my son's life and has been since that day. And so I did make sure that I had thought all of these things through. And I think when I made the video, it was at the time TikToks are only a minute. So my video was 58 seconds. So it's like, how do you explain all this in 58 seconds? And a lot of people in the comments were like, you should have just, gotten drunk and like hooked up with someone. I'm like, no, I've done that before. Like, this is the better option for me at this point. So in the comments, I was like really catty and funny about it, which is what I think made the video go more viral, because people are like, oh, these comments are not even phasing this girl. Like, these people are writing vulgar things. But what I realized, I'm like, they don't understand also. So I had not told people that I lost a child before. I was going to take that to the grave, actually. When I had first posted this like video on TikTok, I had very much opened up on the Facebook and some of the other apps, but TikTok is its own thing. So people were confused, like, what just makes, and I'm like, I was a mother before, like, I know what I was getting into. So that's how I was able to plan for this, which gave me another leg up just kind of on motherhood, on what to expect. So I had to kind of come on the TikTok and tell people like, hey, this is kind of what happened and why I made this choice. And everybody's choice is different. So since I've posted that video, I've had a lot of moms and women reach out to me. One mom reached out, I want to say she lived maybe Atlanta or something. She's a lawyer. She's 40. She got out of a relationship for 7 years. It was not going anywhere. She realized this was not her person. She had no idea that she could get pregnant this way. She was planning on doing $40,000 for IVF, and like, she's on to her second baby, single mom by choice. She's successful. She has these 2 kids now, and her life is very fulfilled in that way. There is another mom, I think she's on to her second baby. She's from Florida. She had reached out. I had kind of taught her the ways, and, she had all this support from her dad and her family. And I think she's now on her second baby too, but like, already successful in her mid 30s, and was feeling like that pull to motherhood, but was like, oh, I thought I was going to have to save up $45,000 for IVF. Like, I had no idea that this was an option. A lot of girls were like, thank you so much. Like, I've been with my boyfriend. He's about to propose and I hate him, but I just like really want to be a mom. And I'm like, okay, don't bring me into this. But like, I gave women another option to take life into your own hands, essentially, responsibly, I hope. Now, there would be 20-year-olds reaching out to me and I'm like, live your life. No, I'm not even going to entertain you. Live your life, Yeah. I just want to be I'm like, you have no idea what you're getting yourself into. I'm like, live your life. Hit me up when you're 30,
Right.
So
it's such a viable option, because there's plenty of people who out there find out their partner's sperm can't make it up there, or they're sterile, and could try this and save so much money, right? There's a lot of people this could help.
Well, and I think a lot of people just don't know it as an option, or they think it's an unsafe option. Now, I did have a fertility clinic stitch my video, and they're like, this is not a safe option. Like, you definitely should, come in and do IVF and IUI. It's the safer option. So like, I had on my other account, my Zippy Mama account, I was like, oh, can you explain like what's unsafe about it? Seems just like sex, essentially. And they could not come up with really a way, except I realized, I was like, okay, so you're just like hoping that the moms will spend, you don't want moms that know that they're fertile to not spend the $12,000 or $45,000 on IVF. Like, so I think people get in their minds like, going to a doctor's office is just probably safer. But sex and it's the same thing. And so they could not. So what their video back to my comment was, well, you'll have a better chance. And I'm like, if you're fertile, you're fertile, you know? So I got pregnant on the first try, you know, and I've clearly that doctor that told me tilted cervix, PCOS thing, you can't get pregnant, that was a lie. So if doctors are telling you guys that, just don't rely on that as truth.
Rely
And
on
now
that as
I'm
birth control either. Breastfeeding, a lot of times they'll be
yeah.
like, oh, you can't get pregnant while you're breastfeeding. Wrong.
Yeah, wrong. So many, that's probably the robot saying that. But yeah, so now I'm pregnant with twins, which I also got pregnant pretty quickly. I did have one cycle that I was like tracking ahead of time, but it was the cycle I took out the IUD. So I'm like, maybe that counts, maybe that doesn't. There's, 6-week period that you got to let that rest. But, and then I'm pregnant now, twins. So there's that.
And no Clomid or anything
But
this time, right? No egg dropping
no.
drug.
So even when I got pregnant via home insemination, I didn't take any medication. I will tell you what I took. I did vitamin D. I was taking a prenatal vitamin D. I was taking something called Avocetol, which was for PCOS, which I'd been taking for a while. And I was taking something called Vitex. All of these things you could get at Sprouts, okay? That's just your regular supplements. Now, Vitex, so my second pregnancy with my son Rhett, who's now almost 5, that was actually a twin pregnancy, believe it or not. Vitex, I found, does the same thing similar to Clomid. You should not be taking Vitex if you don't need it. So Vitex is for people that are not getting a lengthy enough luteal phase. This is where I was still kind of dipping into that crunchy stuff. So Vitex supposedly will help, and I don't know how much truth there is to this. If your luteal phase is not long enough, it could lengthen your luteal phase and get you more regular period. I did notice it was giving me more of a regular period. I will say that. Apparently, if you do not need it, so if your period's already regular, you already have a lengthy enough luteal phase, that it could cause you to ovulate multiple times. So it could do something similar to Clomid. So I did not know that, and I must have ovulated twice. Now, it was COVID at the time, so you did not have your first doctor's appointment until 10 weeks. So when I had gone in for my ultrasound, they thought it was like a subchronic hematoma, a SCH. And then they looked further into it and they're like, oh my gosh, it was another baby.
Right.
Just, it looked like it stopped growing around 7 weeks. So I was like, well, what happens? What does it do? And they're like, well, it's called a vanishing twin syndrome, which statistically accounts for, I think it was like 42% of twin pregnancies equate for, I could be off on that number, vanishing twin syndrome. So it's very common. And a lot of times moms, when they get to their appointment, don't even know that there had been 2 babies in there. So as you can imagine, I get pregnant now and I find out very early on I'm having twins. And I'm just like, I'm not going to believe that because I know the statistics and I've researched this before because I've gone through this before. So finally at I think I was 13 or 14 weeks. And she's like, have you told your family and your friends? And I was like, no. She's like, well, you're past vanishing twin syndrome. So I guess now's the point I tell you, you're having twins, unless something happens, which something these are twins now. You could tell people if you want that you're having twins, but still in my mind, I'm thinking, well, I've gone through that. I didn't go through that. I found out at my ultrasound, here's one baby, there was another one,
Yeah.
So, and then when I got pregnant this time with twins, I was doing my research again, and it was just the perfect storm. So if you've been pregnant with twins before and you're over the age of 35, you're 3 times more likely for that to happen again. So it was just kind of a perfect storm situation, I guess. I mean, I just don't know. We look at it honestly like a crazy miracle. They can't really explain it. Ours was a split embryo. So it's just a crazy situation. And we're so excited. I fight the paranoia. Me and you talk about this. I have called, for those of you guys listening, Hillary in hysterics just over
That wasn't hysterics.
my fears.
Does that make you feel any better? That I don't even call that hysterical.
When I was leaving you the voice messages and I'm like, oh yeah, hold on. I'm just like, couldn't even get it together. It's just like, I think the fear, I'm not vibing with we could get into that with my doctor. And
okay,
I just
really quick though, we should mention you got married in between Rhett and these.
Oh yeah. Okay. So this pregnancy now, so I did meet somebody. Yeah, this pregnancy now natural with my husband. So 19 months ago I met a boy and I was set up with a guy we have mutual friends. We were set up. He lived across the country at the time. And so I thought it would be a good idea to fly out there and that we would have this 10-day road trip back to California where he would live in his friend's back house until I let him move into the house. And a month after that, we were engaged. And 8 months after that, we were married. And a month after that, we became pregnant. So this guy was just this single man bachelor in Boston living his life. And now he's essentially a married father of 3.
2 years later, right?
And he loves every minute of it. He's such a good dad. And I had something, a scare. I I could talk to him. We could talk about that also. But the other day, and he's just like immediately hitting up the doctor, looking things up. And like, he's so into the pregnancy and so into being Rhett's dad and reading the books on discipline and, things like in the baby books. And he has like just accepted this whole thing and he loves it. And so it's been really fun. It's been really fun doing this with a partner. Mm. So now I will say the funniest part about this, and this may be TMI, the funniest part about this. So I got knocked up. So I was single and then I did home insemination, single. I've never been in a position where you're intimate during pregnancy. And I'm like, can you hurt the baby? Like, how does it? And he's like, well, what? And I'm like, no, I've never had to do this in pregnancy before. I've always been single. I've never And so I have some of this stuff is also brand new to me. Like I'm looking up, like, can you like pop your amniotic fluid sac? Like I'm like, I know it sounds so crazy, but these are things that now as a 3rd-time mom, I'm having to look up for the first time, which is
I think that
hilarious.
happens on every baby. All of a sudden you have new concerns because you're older or your other one did something. Also, not an unknown concerns. Many people have asked me that question. So I don't think I have a post specific about that on my site, but pretty close.
I'm shocked you don't have a post. I'm shocked you don't have a post specific to that because when I reached out to you was I 14 weeks pregnant? And I go, why am I lactating?
No, I saw a TikTok and I was like, girl, I totally have a post on that.
And you sent me a post so fast. Like you were faster than the robot at that point. Like you were like, this is actually completely normal. Go to Walmart and get some nursing pads because this is your life now. So yeah, so I'm currently wearing the nursing pads. It was the craziest thing and it wasn't anything that triggered it. I just my breast had been very tender and I was like, look down and I'm like, why are my nipples like I had on a gray t-shirt and I'm like, what is going on? To me, I was like, this has to be a sign I'm going into preterm labor, which is like my biggest fear and a common fear with twins. So I guess it's normal. And so it's just like what I'm going to have to be like dealing with. I'm not collecting milk. So some people I've told, they're like, oh girl, put that in the freezer. And I'm like,
for 6 months.
Hillary gave me the advice to chill for a little bit and we will consider doing that later in pregnancy.
Yeah, maybe get in your 3rd trimester before we start doing that.
Yeah. So yeah, so that's where we're at now, but so far so good. I think with my pregnancy, I'm not having the OBGYN experience that I have had in the past, nor that I thought that I was going to have. So that's kind of been difficult, but thank God for you and for some other people that I could like rely on for questions and concerns. So,
I mean, A lot of people online will just say, if you don't like your provider, just switch. And every time I see that, I'm like, it's so much more complicated than that. For some people, they live rural.
Yeah.
There is one OB in that town, and they have to go several hours to a new OB. So that's not fair to those people. And if you're high risk, you kind of get pegged
Mm.
into one practice because you need a referral, or your insurance only covers one, fetal medicine group. It's tricky.
Well, so kind of what I had learned, and so I had learned a couple things going through this process of trying to change doctors. And just so everybody knows, I have yet to be successful. I have one workaround that I have to wait till 18 weeks to try to get out of this situation that I'm in. But I'm high risk. So I'm gestational hypertension, I'm geriatric, and I have twins. So, kind of how it was explained to me was that, these doctors, they wouldn't want to take a risky transfer. Now, if you go to their office and you're risky, you're already their patient. They don't want to take a risky transfer because for every baby that does not make it, they kind of get a mark on their name a little bit. So they're like, someone's already dealing with you. Don't bring that over here. You already have an MFM and a doctor team over there. Like, don't be bringing that over. Like, we don't want that. So it would have been different. So one doctor told me like, yeah, it would be different if you were, third successful pregnancy. You had two, positive vaginal births, and this is your third pregnancy and everything is going good. Singleton, like no risks associated with this. Like, yeah, come on over. This is a different situation. And so the transfers are not happening. Now, I was a little spoiled. I had two doctors in Orange County. I went to St. Jude with my son Deacon. Phenomenal experience, great office, traumatic birth, but that's because I was trying to be the all natural mom and I should have listened to the doctor and made different decisions. That's all on me. I'm not going to look back on that. But my second birth, I was at Hoag, which is it's the Mastros of all birthing places, hospitals. Like the way they treat you, the way the doctors treat you. So how it works there is if you have any concern whatsoever, any concern, like a twinge of, and now you have gotten it in your mind that your baby has passed and you're 10 weeks. Like if you have anything, you just walk right on in there. So you have your own provider and you walk into the doctor's office, but there's 12 other OBGYNs there. Someone will check you out real quick. The high-end ultrasound is right there. The LabCorp is right there that does your blood. Your pelvic floor therapy is in the same office. And the hospital's across the street if you needed to waltz over there for something. The NSTs are in there and you have your own private room and a TV because you're in there for an hour or two. It is a premium experience. This situation, I found out I was having twins. I was so sick with morning sickness. She sent me to the imaging center to get your ultrasound. So you go to the hospital to get your ultrasounds done. And I was in there and it was an ultrasound tech who was giving me information out of her scope of practice that she shouldn't have been. And two students all taking turns transvagging me, ultrasound wise. And guess who was not in that room? My husband, because it's against their policy. And I found out one of the biggest pieces of news of my life alone while two 20-year-old students transvagged me in a ultrasound room for 45 minutes. And it was one of those things, again, I did not know that this was not normal because I posted a video and people are like, oh, how did your husband take finding out you're having twins? And I was like, oh, I have a video of it because I had walked out in the waiting room and I showed my husband the ultrasound and people are like, Jeremy, ultrasounds aren't scary. You could go in there with her. And I'm like, oh no, he's not allowed to come in. And people are like, dude, that's basic standard of care is for him to be in there with you during this news. Like, what if you found out bad news? Then I had all these girls writing me and being like, oh my gosh, the ultrasound center, I found out I was having a stillbirth there alone while my husband was in the waiting room. And I had to do where I walk out and shake my head at 28 weeks that we lost our baby alone. And I'm like, oh my God, like, this is insane. And they're like, well, that's just our policy. Like, go to another hospital. And I'm like, no, see, that's the thing. I would love to. I can't. And then I've just had some issues. So with the gestational hypertension of it all, it's something very scary because it could turn into preeclampsia. Now, I have never had preeclampsia, but I've had gestational hypertension in both of my pregnancies. Could it be stress and I have the high blood pressure? Who knows what it's from, but it's something that my previous doctor took extremely seriously. Starting at like, I think maybe even 24 weeks, I was having 2 NSTs every week. She took it extremely seriously. I slept overnight in the hospital twice during that pregnancy just because they're like, hey, we're going to just do some further monitor. Like, they take it extremely seriously. And I was talking to you because I'm like, usually I start this gestational hypertension protocol around like 10 or 12 weeks from what I can remember. Like, I'm shocked my doctor is like not having me start this knowing my history. Well, I tracked my blood pressure. So I had tracked my blood pressure for 5 days and I was on 5 days of it being high. And I put in the little, because you can't just go to the office, you have to do it in the health record. So I put in the health record like, hey, I'm concerned about my blood pressure. And they're like, well, when you were here 4 weeks ago, it was fine. So that's what we're going off of. And I'm like, that's great. Now we're here and I'm having 5 days of consistent high blood pressure. I'm worried about it. I'm also concerned that I haven't been starting the high blood pressure protocol, which if you guys don't know, it's essentially baby aspirin. Now, my other doctor, the baby aspirin, I went to the pharmacy, I gave a prescription and they handed it to me. You could buy it over the counter, but that's just how it worked in the past. So she's like, well, if you feel that strongly about starting it, go ahead and get some. And I'm like, get some what? And she said, and this is via chat, she said, get some LDA. And I'm like, what's LDA? She's like, low dose aspirin. And I'm like, milligrams? Like, I'm like having, like, why am I having to ask this? Like, she's like, yeah, if that's what you want. I'm like, okay. So I go and get it. I start that and I felt confident in starting it because you and I had talked, and also because in my previous pregnancies, that's when I started it at 10 weeks. So finally, like, I'm just getting to a point where I'm like, I feel a little bit in the dark with this pregnancy. I want a meeting with the doctor. And so we call a meeting with the doctor. And from what I had heard from people who are kind of in like hospital administration is that, which is my sister. She's like, I am certain your doctor's going to be very much on your side. I am certain your doctor also doesn't like the imaging center's situation of not letting your husband come in. She was like, sometimes it's not the doctors that you should be mad at. It's just the procedures and like what's in place and the protocols in place. And like, I guarantee my sister's like, you're going to go in there and she's going to be very empathetic to how you're feeling and maybe probably agree with you on some things. And she's like, these doctors are overwhelmed. They're, the hospitals don't always listen to the doctors. And so I think she's really going to have your back. So I went in thinking like, I'm going to be met with some compassion here. That's what I'm thinking. So I go in and I'm very nice. I'm like, I did the shit sandwich. So I went in and I was like, I want to start off by saying that your office has been phenomenal. Like, I love the women that work here. I really appreciate the chat feature, even though I'm used to being able to just go in and see a doctor. But like, okay, I like the chat feature. I'm like, I do have some concerns where I'm not sure if I'm getting the level of care that I deserve. And she immediately goes into the defense. And she's like, I've been doing this for 23 years. I answer you back in the chat. Like, if you need something, you have to ask. Like, if you don't ask, I'm like, I don't think that I should be asking about low dose aspirin for high blood pressure, considering I've had it in all of my pregnancies and it's definitely recorded and you know about that. She's like, you're having twins. You should be taking 2. And I was like, so that's, my husband steps in and he's like, okay, so this right here is the first we're hearing of this. And at this point, I'm like 15 weeks. So this right here is the first we're hearing of she should be taking 2. I'm like, do I take 2 prenatals? Do I take 2 DHA? Like, what else should I be taking? Like, and I'm starting to write stuff down. I'm like, this is the first time you've spent more than 5 minutes with me. So I honestly don't, is there anything else I should know? And she's like, well, just ask. What do you want to know? And I'm like, I want you to treat me like this is my first pregnancy. I'm like, I also have concerns with my husband not being there in my ultrasounds. She's like, that's not on me. Take that up with the hospital. I'm like, it is on you. You sent me there. You sent me to a place that doesn't allow my husband. So no, it is on you. And so we never met. And she's like, well, if you want to transfer, good luck with that. Go to the front and I'll try to do it. And I'm like, okay, well, you and I both know I've already been trying to transfer and I'm not having luck. So at this point, I'm going to see the nurse practitioner until my birth. You, unfortunately, are going to be the one to slice and dice me open. Just land that plane with all souls on board, including my own, please. Like, that's at this point, just land that plane. I don't care if there's turbulence. I don't care if an engine goes out. Okay. All souls must be safe when we land, and just land that plane. And that's kind of where we have left it. So I did my research with my robot that there is a little bit of a workaround. So when I start seeing the MFM, if the MFM sees something in my ultrasound with twin pregnancies, like the MFMs, they go through everything with a fine-tooth comb, and almost 100% of the time they find something, a shadow, a spot, or whatever. I can request a second opinion. And I can request that second opinion at the hospital in which I would want to go to. And when they take me in to do that second opinion, I'm kind of registered as a patient. So I'm going to try to do that workaround, possibly. So that's kind of where we're at from here. Again,
so
that's
everyone
what my
listening,
saying.
You should not be we're getting to the robot. Don't you worry. You should not have to ask your doctor about aspirin. That should be one of the first things that providers are getting on that first appointment, is going through all the questions about aspirin, because there's a lot, like some of it's if your mom or your sister had high blood pressure, which wouldn't be related to your health history at all. So they have to go through a list of a few questions, which, by the way, you were having twins. They don't even have to go through the questions, because that's one of the ones. But people, I get frustrated when the doctor's like, well, you should just ask. And I'm like, well, how on earth are people going to know to ask? Like, that doesn't make any sense to me, but God bless.
Yeah. So, I mean, I was kind of being catty towards the end of the situation at this meeting. And I was like, should I ask you now for like maybe an anesthesiologist at my C-section? Like, what else do I need to ask for? Like, I was like, I just asked. And I feel like there is a way, and if providers are listening to this, I just want, and I made a video coming out of this meeting, and I will post it after I have my birth. There was a way she could have addressed the situation and never admitted that she was wrong or that any of this is bad. There was a way she could have done that. And that's with a single ounce of compassion. If she could have mustered up the courage to even have a single ounce of compassion, I'm going to go to an OBGYN. This is on my list. I'm going to pitch the OBGYN conferences, and I'm going to go up there as a patient and be like, here's a way that you can address the concerns of your patient without ever saying that you're wrong. Had I walked in there and said, I have some concerns, I feel like I'm not being heard, I'm not giving enough time. Had you been up there and just said, I am so sorry that you are feeling this way. I would never want one of my patients who's pregnant to have to feel this way. Let's discuss some ways that I could better help you and we could better help each other in communicating so you get the best care possible. Do you see how I just talked right there, where I never said like, I am so sorry that I did that. I should have done better. That is totally on me. And like, I should be sending you to a different ultrasound. Never. Had she just gone in there and been like, I'm so sorry you're feeling this way. I never want my patients to feel this way. Let's discuss some things together and be a team here. Do you see how a tiny bit of compassion could have changed the entire directory of the situation?
Yeah,
and
it
was just not there.
Or any customer service business. Obviously, she don't care about the customer service. Have you watched The Pit yet?
I haven't. Is that on Paramount?
It's on Max, but they're always talking about patient satisfaction scores, which can be frustrating as a healthcare provider, because you're like, you're not giving us enough staff. That is literally why our patient satisfaction scores suck. So anyway.
And that's what I think my sister was trying to get at, was like, the doctors are dealing with a lot too, and they're very much like on the team of the patient. So I went in there thinking she's going to be on the team of the patient and just be like, hey, there's some stuff going around. We're fighting for changes right now. And like, you got caught up. Anything except she was like, I've been doing this 23 years. No one has ever had a problem with me. This is a you thing. Like, and I was like, oh my God. So I'm just hoping that when she sews up my C-section scar that it's like somewhat in a line. Like I just hope it's not like a squiggly mark. Like she's all I'm going to show her. Like I just, and she's a professional. And one of my good friends just had twins, same doctor, same C-section, super successful. Babies didn't spend one day in the NICU. She had the best care there. It was the best team of people. She felt very confident. And so therefore I'm kind of like holding on to that right now.
Yeah.
But I was sent to this doctor by everybody in my community. Everyone, and I'm not going to say the doctor's name, but everybody was like, this person, she's the best. Oh my God, there's no better doctor. And what I realized is that I have been eating at Mastro's with my pregnancies.
Yeah.
And some of these girls, they don't know anything better than McDonald's. And so to them, it's been a great experience. But I think for me, when I've had this high standard of care, and now I'm at a situation where I'm like, but this seems different, Not that it's bad. It's probably just normal. But I don't think I'm asking for a lot to just tell me the medications I should be on for something that could cause preeclampsia. You know what I mean?
That is a real push in the United States right now. It's not like this is something weird.
So we'll see
it's
when
hard.
This comes out.
It's hard to watch videos of people like at birth centers that are like lighting and a tub in the room and, special music you can play. Whereas I've worked at birth centers that we were lucky if the tile was like intact, right? Like, or that there weren't roaches falling out of the ceiling, which has happened at some of the hospitals that I worked at. And so sometimes when I watch these, it's really hard to compare like situations just because it varies so much. And I know even in the South, it's even worse than where I'm at. So it's always tricky when you compare doctors and stuff like that. But Dani and I have also been talking about how she uses her AI robot to answer her pregnancy questions. And I've always been like, stop, I am your AI robot, just text me. And you're like, no, I have my AI robot trained on the right sites or whatever. So what are some things you've asked your AI robot? And I'm going to tell you if that's safe to ask your AI. Aspirin would have been safe to ask. I'll give it that probably.
Okay, so one thing that I asked my robot last night is it okay to get Botox and laminate? Not that I'm going to, but I'm seeing pregnant girls and their faces looking near perfect. And I know that ain't natural. And I put that on my stories and people were like, yeah, no, it's totally fine now. And I'm like, So you're saying no?
I think it's a no. As far as I know, Botox is a no, just because they don't know if that could get into your bloodstream or something like that. I don't understand brow lamination, so I don't know how that could accumulate in your body. The internet told me to write a post on that, but I was so out of I barely have brows at all. It's too new. So I don't know.
It's too
I mean, for a long time, they didn't even massage pregnant women because they were worried that they could hurt the baby, which now I'm like, come on. Like, we gotta.
What about, how do you tell your twins apart?
I've seen parents put a little Sharpie on one of the toenails, like the big toe.
You
they
said
would just
that, and I feel like
nail.
That's a good. Okay.
Yeah, because I think fingernail polish comes off harder. Like, it comes off easier, fingernail polish.
Okay, so this is another one that I freaked out over. What's the difference between discharge or my water breaking?
I have robot like 16 articles about that.
Can you send those to me? Because I had a scare this weekend. I like sat down and I felt like what was like a gush or something. And I immediately called the doctor and was like, I think my water broke. It turns out it was more of a milky texture, and that's what my robot said. It would be more of a milky texture in which it was.
Yeah, I have articles on, is it discharge? Is it pee? What does it feel like when my water breaks? Because most people will feel a pop. I would say 70% of the people I say, they feel a pop when their water breaks. So that sometimes can help people reassure. But the big one is that your water just keeps coming out. If it's one gush, probably not it.
So that's what I have.
Yeah. So I used to just, when I was writing articles based on Google searches, I would just do AI for fun. Like, I was like, can you drink wine during pregnancy? And AI was like, absolutely. The antioxidants in wine, I would suggest 2 to 3 glasses a day. And I was like, strong work, AI. Really, really good work. And then I wrote one, is sour cream safe during pregnancy? And it was like, absolutely not. Your risk of listeria goes up with sour cream. And I was like, it's pasteurized sour cream. Do you think?
I feel like pasteurization is okay.
No, pasteurized sour
Anyways.
cream, totally fine. Yeah. Also, I don't think you get
Okay.
listeria. Maybe you can get listeria from unpasteurized cheese products, like brie. You're not supposed to be eating unpasteurized cheese when
Yeah,
you're
I
pregnant.
don't mess with that. I don't mess with
Most
that.
people are not like,
Anyways.
now is the time for brie, right?
Yeah.
I'm nauseated. Let's get some brie in me.
Well, you've just been like the best thing for me during this pregnancy, and I so appreciate you, and I hope that people use you as a resource. You just put out so much good stuff, and you're someone I trust, and your stuff is easily digestible, and I just really, really appreciate it and our friendship.
That's awesome.
So thank you.
Thank you. We got to get Jeremy in the birth class, though, because he obviously is ripe and ready to go. So we're going to get Dani started on the birth class, because that'll answer a lot of everyone's questions too, probably. Thank you for coming on. This has been so much fun. I hope people realize, I hate that doctor was like, this is unsafe, because when doctors do stuff like that, it doesn't open up the door for like collaboration, or the fact that it really is not unsafe, especially compared to regular sex where you could pass chlamydia or gonorrhea. Like a syringe is a lot safer from like a medical perspective. So anyway, I'm glad that you shared it.
But yeah.
And you guys should 100% follow Dani. She has so many good tips on car seats, child safety. It's going to also be fun to watch Dani head into life with 3 kids versus just 1, because I'm sure there's going to be a lot of fun chaos to enjoy.
Love you.
All right. We'll talk to you later.
Bye.
All right. I hope you guys enjoyed this episode. It was fun to like bounce around to different topics. Dani and I are obviously friends, but I think 3 things that I learned. First off, the money is important. And I really love that she tried something that worked for her instead of just doing something that kind of was the standard for getting pregnant. Second of all, if you're in a position where you can't switch providers, sometimes you have to make do. She's definitely looked around, like we've talked a lot about it, but I just want people to know that sometimes you don't get the provider of your dreams, but can still have a really great outcome. And third, watch AI. Those robots will get you. Thank you for coming on, Dani. I hope you guys will join us on our next episode. Thanks for joining us on the Pulling Curls podcast today. If you liked today's episode, please consider reviewing, sharing, subscribing. It really helps our podcast grow. Thank you.